You're sitting in a doctor's office. She slides an envelope across the desk and tells you, inside this is a date. Your date. The day you're going to die. She says it's completely accurate. She says you don't have to open it. Would you? Most people say yes, about 70% in surveys. And it makes sense. You could plan your finances, repair your relationships, quit the job you hate, take the trip you've been putting off. You'd stop wasting time on things that don't matter, right? But here's what happens when this isn't hypothetical. When the test actually exists. When the envelope is real, almost nobody opens it. Fewer than 1 in 5. And that gap between what you think you do and what people actually do when they're holding the envelope might be the most honest thing your brain has ever told you. Something in you already knows what this question is really asking, and it's not what you think. The test is for a disease called Huntington's. It attacks your brain, slowly stealing your ability to move, think, and eventually breathe. It usually starts in your 30s or 40s. If one of your parents has it, you've got a coin flip. No cure, no treatment that slows it down. But since 1993, there's been a simple blood test that tells you, with absolute certainty, whether you carry the gene. Now here's the part of this story I can't get out of my head. The person most responsible for making that test possible is a woman named Nancy Wexler. Her mother died of Huntington's, so Nancy, knowing she had a 50-50 chance, spent 20 years traveling to villages on the shores of Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela, where Huntington's was unusually common. She collected thousands of blood samples. She built a family tree 18,000 people deep. Her work led directly to finding the gene. Nancy Wexler has never been tested. The woman who made the answer possible chose not to know. And she's not unusual. Up to 80% of at-risk people say they'd take the test. In reality, about 1 in 6 does. That's not weakness. The people closest to this question, the ones who live with the envelope on their desk every single day, are telling us something about the nature of knowing. Something the rest of us haven't figured out yet. So what happens to the people who do open it? The ones who choose to know? You'd expect the answer to be straightforward. Bad news breaks you, good news sets you free. But when researchers tracked people after Huntington's testing, something unexpected happened. The ones who learned they carried the gene were devastated at first, but within a year, most had adapted. Their distress settled back to almost normal. And here's where it gets genuinely strange. About a quarter of the people who tested negative, who got the best possible news, didn't cope well at all. They'd spent years building their identity around being at risk. They'd chosen careers, relationships, financial plans, assuming a shorter life. Some had been the center of their family's worry for years, and when the threat vanished, so did the framework they'd used to understand who they were. Some described losing their sense of purpose. Others were crushed by guilt. Why them and not their sibling? The researchers noticed something else. The people who handled their results best, positive or negative, weren't the ones who got the right answer. They were the ones who were psychologically grounded before they opened the envelope. Who they were going in mattered more than what it said. Which means this question was never really about the information. It was never about the date. It was about who you are when you're holding it. Here's where the question flips. When people really feel, that their time is running out, they don't panic. They don't fall apart. They do something no one expected. They prioritize. Fewer friends, but deeper ones. Less novelty, more meaning. The future stops mattering. The present becomes everything. A Stanford psychologist named Laura Carstensen proved this, and the way she did it still gives me chills. In the 1990s, Carstensen studied young men with HIV, men in their 20s and 30s who knew their time was probably short. And those men made the exact same choices as people in their 70s and 80s. It wasn't age. It wasn't wisdom accumulated over decades. It was the awareness that time was running out. When the same researchers studied people right after September 11th, they found the same shift. young people suddenly living like time was precious. It was never about how old you are. It was about how much time you think you have left. Steve Jobs, standing at Stanford 2 years after his cancer diagnosis, said it as clearly as anyone ever has. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. He said everything, expectations, pride, fear of failure, falls away in the face of death, leaving only what truly matters. The deadline didn't destroy him, it clarified him.
So here's the envelope again.
You know more now than you did 7 minutes ago. You know that most people who can take the test don't. You know the answer might not affect you the way you think. Even good news can unravel you. You know that what actually changes a life isn't the information inside the envelope. It's the urgency that comes from holding it. Every culture that has stared death in the face has arrived at the same answer. 2,000 years ago, Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." In Bhutan, there's a folk saying, "Contemplate death 5 times a day." The samurai trained themselves to live as though already dead, not from despair, but because they believed it was the only way to act without hesitation. They all found the same thing. You don't need the date, you need the awareness.
So would you open it?
I don't think the answer matters as much as the fact that this question just made you feel something. That tightening, that quick scan of the people you love and the things you haven't started. That feeling, right now, sitting wherever you are, is exactly what the envelope would have given you. You didn't need the date, you just needed the question. You already have it.